I never expected my life to unravel over a simple backyard barbecue. The tradition had started years ago, back when we were all younger, with fewer responsibilities and a lot more time on our hands. It was just a group of friends who had met in college, sticking together through all of life's milestones, marriages, kids' career changes. Over time, those casual get-togethers evolved into something more structured. A tradition we kept alive no matter how hectic life became. Now we were adults with full lives and families of our own. But the bond between us remained. That Saturday evening, like many before, we gathered at Scott and Andrea's house. The air was warm, the scent of grilled food filling the backyard. As our children left in the distance, I should have known something was different that night. Maybe it was the way my wife, Gina, kept stealing glances at John, or how his eyes lingered on her a little too long. At the time, I ignored it. John had been through a lot. Losing his wife. Marcy, just a year ago, had left him a shadow of the man he once was. We had all been doing our best to support him, encouraging him to move forward. I never imagined that moving forward meant looking at my wife that way. The next morning started like any other. Gina and I had a long-standing weekend routine, sleep in a little shower together, then go our separate ways. For the day, she usually spent her mornings reading or catching up with friends, while I worked on my car in the garage. But that morning, just as I was about to head out, she stopped me. "Honey, we need to talk." Her voice was soft, hesitant. I turned immediately, sensing that whatever she had to say wasn't going to be good. We sat at the kitchen table, an odd tension hanging between us. Gina avoided my eyes as she fidgeted with the edge of her coffee mug. "John told me something last night," she finally said. I nodded, "Yeah." "What about—" She took a deep breath. "He's ready to start dating again." Relief washed over me. "That's great. He deserves to be happy." "There's more," she continued. "He's interested in someone he's had feelings for a long time." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "Do we know her?" She finally met my gaze, and in that moment, "I knew it's me," she whispered. The room went silent at first. I laughed, thinking she was joking. John had been our friend for years. There was no way, but Gina didn't laugh, she didn't smile. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about John's feelings. It was about hers. My heart pounded in my chest as I forced out the question I already knew the answer to. "Are you asking for a divorce?" Her eyes widened in panic. "No, Henry. I don't want a divorce. I love you. I want to stay married to you." I stared at her in disbelief. "Then what the hell is this?" She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Just listen to me," she pleaded. "I need to tell you everything." I braced myself, knowing that whatever came next would change everything. She took a shaky breath before speaking again. "You know that everyone in our group met in college except you." She started. I nodded. "John and I met in an English class. We started dating, fell in love. We even talked about marriage." A pit formed in my stomach. Then one night we had too much to drink. John and Marcy, they slept together. I stiffened. "What?" "They swore it was a mistake. I was devastated, but I forgave them. Then a few months later, Marcy found out she was pregnant." I gripped the edge of the table as realization dawned. "John did the right thing," she continued. He married Marcy, and I tried to move on. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. Then I met you. The weight of her words crushed me. For 20 years, I had been living in ignorance, completely unaware that my wife had once planned a life with another man, one of my closest friends. And if Marcy hadn't died, I would have never known. I muttered bitterly. Gina lowered her gaze. We thought if you knew, it would ruin your friendship with John. I let out a hollow laugh. Yeah. Well, congratulations. It's ruined. She flinched but pressed on. I'm telling you now because I need to ask you something. I braced myself. I was wondering how you'd feel about sharing me with him. Time froze. The words hung in the air, suffocating me. I stood so fast, my chair tipped over. Share? My voice was Incredibles. Are you having an affair? No, Henry. Not really, please. Just let me explain. I was shaking with rage. You know what, Gina? I said, grabbing my keys. I need to leave before I say something I regret. She called after me, but I was already out the door. I barely registered where I was going until I found myself in front of John's apartment. His car was parked outside, like a taunting reminder of the betrayal I never saw coming. Had this been his idea, or had Gina come up with it on her own? I needed answers, and I wasn't leaving without them. I didn't go back home that night. After packing my suitcase and leaving Gina behind, I drove aimlessly for hours. The city blurred past me, streetlights casting long shadows on the empty roads. My mind felt like it was spinning in circles, stuck in an endless loop of disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. How had we ended up here? Gina had been my wife for 20 years. We had built a life together, raised a daughter, shared dreams and struggles. And now, after all that time, she was asking me to accept something impossible, to share her with another man. Not just any man, John. A man I had trusted, a man I considered a friend. I parked my truck outside an old motel on the edge of town. The neon sign flickered above the entrance, casting a dim red glow over the parking lot. I paid for a room in cash and collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep never came. All I could hear was her voice. I love you, I always have. But I also love John. The words cut deeper than anything else. If she had fallen out of love with me, maybe this would have been easier. But she hadn't. She claimed to love me while also wanting him. How was I supposed to compete with history, with the fact that she had loved John first? By morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to be part of this arrangement. I wasn't going to wait for her to decide which life she wanted. She had already made her choice. When I returned to the house later that morning, Gina was waiting for me at the kitchen table. A cup of coffee sat untouched in front of her. Her eyes were red and puffy like she had been crying all night. She looked up as I walked in, hope flashing across her face. You came back, I set my keys on the counter. Only to get the rest of my things. Her face crumbled. Henry, please. I held up a hand. No, Gina. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. She flinched but didn't argue. Instead, she wiped at her eyes. Where did you go, a motel? You could have stayed here, she whispered. I let out a hollow laugh. Stayed while you plan how to split your time between me and John. I shook my head. No, Gina. That's not how this works? She stared down at the table, gripping her coffee mug, like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I don't want to lose you. Then why are you doing this? My voice was quieter now, not angry. Just tired tears slipped down her cheeks. Because I love him too. I clenched my jaw, then be with him. She looked up sharply. It's not that simple, it is. I said firmly. You don't get to have both of us. You don't get to ask me to accept this. To share my wife with another man? That's not love, Gina. That's selfishness. Her face twisted in pain. I never wanted to hurt you. Then you shouldn't have, she reached for me. But I stepped back, don't. I warned, I can't do this, Gina. I won't. Silence stretched between us. Heavy and unbearable finally. She spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. What now? I took a deep breath. Now we figure out how to end this. Her lips parted in shock. You mean divorce? What else is there? She wiped at her face. I was hoping we could find a way. There is no way I cut in. You can't love two people and expect them both to be okay with it. That's not how love works. She looked away, silent. I exhaled sharply. I'll pack my things and stay somewhere else for now. We'll talk about lawyers later. As I turned toward the bedroom, her voice stopped me. Henry, I'm sorry I didn't respond. Packing was harder than I expected. Every drawer, every closet, every piece of furniture held memories of our life together. It wasn't just my marriage ending. It was my entire world unraveling. Halfway through, I had to stop and sit on the bed. My hands shaking. How did it come to this, John? I couldn't stop thinking about him. Had he planned this? Had he been waiting for the right moment? Or had this been inevitable from the start? I checked my phone. There were no messages from him. No explanations, no apologies. I couldn't let that slide. I finished packing, loaded my bags into the truck, and drove straight to his apartment. John answered the door within seconds, like he had been expecting me. He didn't look surprised. I clenched my fists at my sides. We need to talk, John stepped aside. Letting me in his apartment was spotless. Too clean, like he had spent all night trying to distract himself. He gestured toward the couch. Henry, I know you're angry. I cut him off angry. Doesn't begin to cover it. John sighed, running a hand through his hair. I never meant for this to happen like this. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, really? Then how exactly did you see this going? He hesitated. I don't know. He exhaled. I love her, Henry. My jaw tightened. Yeah. And that gives you the right to try and take her from me? John's expression was pain. I never wanted to take her. He sighed. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't feel this way. I shook my head in disbelief. You had 20 years to say something, 20 years to move on, but instead, you waited until Marcy was gone, and then decided it was time to tell Gina how you feel. His face twisted. It wasn't like that. Then tell me, I challenged. How was it, silence? I scoffed. That's what I thought. John swallowed. Look, I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, John. I said, my voice low. I pity you, his brows furrowed. You had your chance a long time ago and you lost it. But instead of respecting what Gina and I built, you threw this into her head. You made her believe she could have both of us. But you and I both know that's not how this ends. John swallowed hard. So what now? I exhaled sharply now. Now she chooses. His face fell. I stepped toward the door, pausing just before opening it. Just remember, John, I said quietly, no matter what happens next, you broke this, you ruined this. And if she ends up with you, you'll have to live with knowing that you destroyed a marriage to make it happen. I didn't wait for a response. I walked out, slamming the door behind me. For the first time in 20 years, I truly felt alone. And Gina had a choice to make. The drive back from John's apartment was quiet. Too quiet, the kind of silence that settles deep in your bones, making you feel the weight of everything at once. I didn't know what I expected from confronting him. An apology, justification. Maybe some kind of regret. But John had already made peace with what he had done. And Gina, she was still standing in the middle, refusing to decide. But I wasn't going to wait anymore. When I pulled into the driveway, Gina was sitting on the front porch, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked like she hadn't slept. The sight of her, my wife, the woman I had loved for 20 years, looking so lost and broken, it almost made me pause almost. But then I remembered why we were here. She saw me step out of the truck and quickly got to her feet. Henry, I held up a hand. No more, Gina. No more explanations. No more excuses. We need to end this. Her face crumpled. I don't want to end us. You already did. My voice was quiet but firm. Tears welled up in her eyes. That's not true. I love you, Henry. But you love him too. She flinched. Do you realize how unfair that is? I asked how impossible you want me to just live with it. To pretend like this isn't breaking me. She wiped at her face, I thought. I thought maybe we could find a way to make it work. I let out a bitter laugh, and what? We take turns. I get Mondays and Wednesdays, and John gets the weekends. Don't joke about this, she snapped. Her voice shaking. I'm not. I said, because that's what you're asking me to do. To accept something I can't. And you know I can't. She took a deep breath. Then what do you want, Henry? I clenched my fists at my sides, studying myself before I spoke the words I never thought I'd say. I want a divorce. Gina's entire body tensed. No, she whispered, Henry, please. I shook my head. I can't be in a marriage where I'm not enough, where I'm constantly wondering if you're thinking about him. When you're with me, I deserve better than that. And so do you? She swallowed hard. I don't want to lose you, then you shouldn't have done this. A sob broke from her lips, and she covered her face with her hands for the first time. I didn't comfort her. I couldn't. I turned toward the door. I'll stay in a hotel until we figure everything out. She looked up sharply. You don't have to leave. I met her eyes, yes. I do, she didn't argue. She knew I was right before I left. There was one more person I had to see. Our daughter, Emma. She was 21 now in her final year of college. I didn't want her to find out about this over a phone call. I drove to her campus and waited outside her dorm. When she finally came out, her face lit up until she saw the look on mine. Dad, she asked, her smile fading. What's wrong? I exhaled slowly. We need to talk. She stared at me for a moment, then nodded. Okay. We sat in a quiet cafe nearby. I didn't sugarcoat it. She was old enough to hear the truth. When I finished, she just sat there stunned. So Mom is in love with someone else. I nodded. She says she loves both of us. Emma scoffed. That's not how love works. A sad smile pulled at my lips. That's what I said. She ran a hand through her hair. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I knew things were weird between you two. But I never expected this. Neither did I. Emma's eyes softened. Are you okay? I swallowed hard. I will be. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. No matter what happens, I'm on your side. That almost broke me. I gave her a small nod. I just wanted you to hear it from me first. She sighed. What about Mom? What does she expect? She wants to keep the marriage. Emma frowned and have John on the side. I didn't answer. She let out a breath. That's not fair to you, Dad. I know. She shook her head. She's being selfish. I didn't argue. Does John even care about what this is doing to you? She asked. I let out a hollow laugh. I don't think he does. Emma clenched her jaw. What an idiot! I smiled despite everything. You get that from me, you know? She smirked. Yeah, I know. By the time I got back to the house that night, I was exhausted. Gina was waiting in the living room. You talked to Emma, she said softly. I nodded. She swallowed. What did she say? That she's on my side. Gina winced. I set my keys on the counter. I'll be staying in a hotel for now. We can talk about lawyers later. She hesitated. Do we have to do this? I met her eyes. Yes. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But she didn't argue anymore. For the first time in days, she seemed to accept that this was real, that this was over. I grabbed my bags, took one last look at the house we had built together, and walked out the door. This wasn't the ending I wanted, but it was the one I needed. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The hotel room was quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps in the hallway. No clatter of dishes in the kitchen. No familiar hum of Gina moving through the house. It was just me, a suitcase, and the reality that my marriage was truly over. For the first time in 20 years, I was alone, and yet I didn't feel broken. I felt relieved. The next morning, I met with a lawyer. I wanted this divorce to be as smooth as possible. No fights, no drama. Just a clean break. Gina hadn't tried to fight it. She had called me the night before, her voice thick with emotion. I don't want this, Henry, she had whispered. But you want him, I had replied. Silence. She couldn't deny it. And I wasn't going to pretend anymore. Now sitting across from my lawyer, I signed the first set of documents that would begin the process of ending our marriage. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. I hadn't planned to see John again. I wanted to leave everything behind and move on. But fate had other plans. I ran into him at the grocery store. Of all places, he was picking up a bottle of wine, looking way too comfortable for someone who had destroyed a 20-year marriage. Henry, he said, surprised. I stared at him for a moment. Then I did something I hadn't done since this whole mess started. I smiled. It wasn't forced. It wasn't bitter. It was real. Because I finally understood something he hadn't won. Gina choosing him didn't mean he had taken something from me. If anything, I had freed myself from a marriage that no longer served me and John. He was inheriting all the broken pieces of a woman who didn't even know what she wanted. I hope you're happy, John, I said, my voice calm. He shifted uncomfortably. Henry, the nod. I shook my head. No need. I just wanted to tell you that I'm done with all of this. I don't hate you. I don't hate Gina. I'm just moving on. He looked at me confused, as if he had expected me to be angry forever. But I wasn't, I was free. And that scared him more than my hatred ever could. A week later, I met up with Emma again. She had been checking in on me, making sure I was okay. You look lighter, she said. Studying me over a cup of coffee, I chuckled, I feel lighter. She smiled good. You deserve that, I nodded, appreciating how much she had been there for me. Mom called me, she admitted. After a moment, I raised an eyebrow, and she asked if I hated her. My stomach tightened. What did you say? Emma sighed. I told her I don't hate her. But I don't respect what she did. I leaned back in my chair. Letting her words settle, that's fair? She looked at me. She's miserable, Dad. I can tell. I wasn't sure how to respond to that. I didn't wish misery on Gina despite everything. But I also knew that she had made her choice, and so had I. Months passed and the divorce was finalized. It was strange how fast life moved once I let go. I found a new place, reconnected with old friends, and started focusing on myself for the first time in years. One afternoon, I was at a bookstore browsing aimlessly when someone bumped into me. Sorry, I turned and my breath caught. She was beautiful with warm eyes and a kind smile. It's okay, I said. She hesitated, then glanced at the book in my hands. You like historical fiction? I chuckled. I do you? She grinned obsessed. We talked for nearly an hour. Her name was Laura, and she had just moved to town for the first time in a long time. I felt something stir in my chest. Hope. Maybe my marriage had ended. Maybe I had lost something I thought would last forever. But life wasn't over, and as I walked out of that bookstore, I realized something. Sometimes endings are just new beginnings in disguise.